The BMD Podcast, anytime you want. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm the BMD and you're not. We have a catch-up video today on recording drumming 101, we're clicheing, and we've got Mike the Mazurek in town, catching up with him again on what's happening with him. What does he say? What does he know? Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Happy morning, evening, or lunch somewhere in the world. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, BMD? Nice to see you again.
And thanks for gracing us with your presence.
Yes, thank you for having me.
BMD Talks. So last time we did a little bit on the electro techno, how to make a beat, as you are, of course, a beat master. And today we thought we'd catch up and how you portray and put the drum, recording of the drum, whether it be solo or background, and explain to the listeners and viewers how somebody at the engineering level masters that. We've got Lucas setting us up, making sure we're okay, and let's roll it out. So catch up. Where have you been since our last talk? We'll talk briefly about that and then get right at it. Where have you been? What do you say? What do you know?
Well, for the last little while, the beginning of the new year so far, I've just been kind of tightening everything up around the studio, trying to get a better workflow and connected with some new clients, which was kind of cool. Obviously I had to do things a little bit differently with COVID. You know, everybody's exercising the mask thing and just going the extra mile to sanitize everything before I have anybody here. And just put out some new YouTube covers.
It affected you? Like
Sorry,
everyone else, has COVID, hurt the business, or are people nervous about engaging? Tell us.
So what it is like the clients that I do know, of course, personally, they sort of know the hygiene and they feel a little bit more comfortable, but it is tough because a lot of people aren't going anywhere, period. So you're not going to get as many recording gigs, right? People that actually come here and record something. But it is nice because a lot of our job as engineers is remote. We can do mixing, we can do mastering. People just send us their files, even with beat making, right? Like I could make something here and send it to them via email. So it's 50-50. Some of it was hurt, yes, but there's still a lot of other things we can do to kind of keep afloat.
So you're still pushing forward, new energy, new work, new people.
That's right.
Hip hop, new rappers, new rock and rollers.
Yeah.
Tell us, have you cut any new songs or new beats? Or because I know today we're getting into drum licks.
That's right. Yeah.
What about the beat master? Have you developed some new beats?
Yeah. So I've been working on something for a client called Rio. And for those of you who have heard of Juice WRLD, he's sort of along the lines of that sort of style. It's like a punk rock, hip hop fusion type of thing, like pop punk specifically. And I produced a track for him based on a beat that he had sort of from YouTube, and I sort of recreated it, made it my own. Oh, sorry, somebody was calling me there. Basically recreated it, made it my own, played drums over top of it. And that sort of ties into what we're doing today. Like recording the drums is kind of a cool opportunity to get a song to kind of go from, the same sort of everything you hear in hip hop, usually 808 drums is what it is these days, to kind of fusing it with real drums, especially because you have sort of the punk inspiration. So bringing in the real drums just gives it that authenticity, which was a cool thing. And he really liked the way it came out. The client was really happy with it. So hopefully that song will come out in the next couple months. People will be able to hear what's going on with that.
Okay, now I teased you a little bit with your lingo on drum licks or drum lick. Let's start breaking that down. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah, it sounds probably funny, but it's basically a lick is just kind of another way to, it could be a beat, it could be a drum fill, which is sort of the things you put between beats, but I guess in the shortest way to say it, a lick is just your personal sort of idea on the drums. Like it could be a short thing, it could be a long thing. Usually it's a it's a 2 to 4 bar pattern that's unique to a drummer, and they'll kind of come up with it. And it'll usually have some sort of interesting technique or something unique that someone hasn't seen before. And the whole basis behind this instrument, which is really special, is there's not a lot of negative energy. It's a lot of people that are all like drummers sort of sharing ideas with each other. It's not really so much about, oh, this drummer is better than that drummer and whatnot. They're really just trying to get better and learn from each other, because everybody has different chops and different skills around the kit. And that's where the licks come in. Some guys have licks that are unique to them, and other drummers have never seen something like that before, so they want to know how to do it and what they can do, you know?
So has drumming changed before we get into drum licks, and drumming 101 recording? What has the industry of drumming changed? I know you're a young guy, you might not know this, but I've got to ask it. Let's say the days of Ringo Starr, Ginger Baker, back in the 60s, they were somewhat the role models. And of course, Tommy Lee, Neil Peart on Rush, Hawkins on Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
So is there new things happening in the drumming world?
Yeah, there's a lot of new guys, younger guys, my age, a little bit older. A few that come to mind is Benny Greb's been around for a little while, but he's definitely one of the younger guys. There's also Nate Smith. The Real Pocket Queen on Instagram is huge right now. And she's really cool. She's got like a platform she's built for herself on Instagram, where she started just doing little 30-second clips on Instagram of her playing to her favorite funk songs and hip hop songs. And she was one of the first I've seen to really hold down, hip hop drumming to that extent. Like a lot of it is, a lot of the drumming you see obviously is metal or rock, and it's really cool to start seeing hip hop drummers kind of emerge, because historically they were usually just strictly session drummers or studio drummers, and you didn't really see them too much unless you were in that world. But someone like the Pocket Queen is bigger than just the drum world. Like she's got attention from all kinds of A-list artists, and she's really blown up in the last couple of years. So she's really inspiring for me to watch anyways. And the word pocket refers to just being really tight and locked into the rhythm. And that's really her style. I mean, she's probably got one of the best feels on the drum kit that I've seen, especially for hip hop. So,
it's interesting. I watched Michael Jackson, the tour that never happened, when he passed away, and I forget his drummer, but it was a 15, 20-year relationship.
Oh, Sugarfoot. Yeah.
He was, sure. He was known on this real double tapping foot thing.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the little movie they made of Jackson. It was the rehearsal for the tour, the final tour that never happened. And Jackson was all about the drumming. That was the start. That was the whole song. I don't mean the sound, but the pace.
Yeah.
So has that changed from, say, the 60s, 70s, 80s? Now drumming is where it used to be maybe guitar or bass. Drumming now is leading the way. That's what I feel.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Like it was, it's really truly the newest instrument of the bunch. Like some of these instruments, like piano, guitar especially, have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. But the contemporary drum set, like what you see here, is really only just barely 100 years old. Like it really just started becoming the way it is now in the sort of the 60s, 50s. And it is starting to become more of the forefront, thankfully. Before it was a lot more of just sort of the supporting backbone, and there was definitely drummers in the 60s, like Buddy Rich, for example, was definitely the leading voice in his band, and the same with Neil Peart with Rush, right? He was really sort of the glue that held it all together, and he did so much for the band, including writing the lyrics. But nowadays, there's more of that. It's gotten even better. So I definitely agree with you on that. Yeah.
We've caught up a little bit. Great explanation, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm an older guy, and I know you young bloods all have new opinions about what's happening in the music scene. And I feel I'm a pretty good judge of that, being around 60, 70, 80, 90, 2000s. And I've heard many changes in the industry, but I I think the drum's the main instrument now, where when I grew up, it was kind of maybe lead guitar with your Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, let's roll in where we got to today. You're sitting in a seat. Tell us the next move. What are we going to hear? We are doing recorded drumming 101. We're clicheing that, I know, but fill in the viewers and listeners. Tell them what we're about to hear and see.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to give you a quick tour of the drum set, just so you guys sort of know what's going on. I have a pretty standard setup as far as drums right here. I got the snare drum, which is sort of the heart of the whole kit. I have one rack tom up here. Some guys will run two. And I have actually two big floor toms. And that was sort of the goal with this kit, to do something a little different. Over here, pretty much all these cymbals you see roughly about this size are all referred to as crash cymbals. Those usually come on the end of a beat. And you'll usually pair that with one kick drum. And I have the ride cymbal over here, which is sort of the same sort of thing as a hi-hat. In drumming, when we say anything with the term ride, it refers to sort of a surface that we kind of stay on, playing the smaller subdivisions behind a beat. So you're riding on the surface. That's sort of where the name came from, because you're just hanging out there for the duration of the beat anyways. And then these little guys here, we call them splash cymbals, because that's probably the best way to describe their sound. This is a stack over here. Sort of just gives a quick little chick / white noise type of effect. It's like two cymbals kind of pressed against each other pretty firmly. And then over here, I've got a ozone / China. It's sort of the same effect. Anytime you put holes in a cymbal, you sort of get this really trashy effect.
Now, is that something you did? Because I've never seen those cymbals before.
No, they actually come from the factory like that. They actually cut them that way. Yeah. So I'll play a regular crash and I'll play that guy, and you'll sort of be able to hear the difference. Are
you going to play a cover or your own stuff?
I'm going to probably just show some of my own licks, which will be a nice way to kind of better explain what the lick thing is, right?
Now, what's going on with the Vanilla Ice look? I forgot to ask you that.
You got to keep the inspiration alive.
I hear you. Are we going to hear a little do?
If we could clear the copyrights, that is.
I hear you. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, so check this out. So you got sort of a cleaner sounding cymbal here. This is more sort of a jazz type of cymbal. And then you got this guy here. So I'm not so sure how well you can hear that through the phone, but you could probably tell the one with the holes is a little bit more aggressive. It just kind of bites a little bit more. But that's sort of the idea with the cymbals. It's sort of just different sounds and different flavors to kind of accent everything else. And the cool thing about the drums is you get different drum kits are made of different woods, and the different woods resonate differently. So you get different sounding drum sets that way. So you'll have, a maple kit might be a little bit warmer. Mahogany kit might be better in the low register and has a little bit more thump, and then they have everything in between, and they do hybrid shells as well. So it's cool, really versatile instrument. So yeah, I'll show you sort of a cool little lick that I've done for a little while. It's sort of based off of a 5 pattern, so it's basically. But what I'm doing is I'm accenting every 5th note. The type of notes I'm playing is something called 16th note triplets, which is essentially 12 notes in a bar. So, right. So if I just play that, you can do a lot with just that. But sort of something I did to make it a little bit more interesting. Again, this is where the word lick comes in handy. Accent every 5th note, but you're still playing the same notes, but it sounds different. It changes the rhythm. So it ends up being this. You can move the accents around, so I can just play it on the snare. Can add a kick drum. And then you start moving it around and speeding it up, it starts getting pretty cool.
So where do you decide to come up with all those moves?
Well, a lot of the times what it comes from is sort of just experimenting with the fundamentals. Like for example, like understanding the 16th note subdivision, and then using triplets as well. Like I was just playing the 16th note triplets, and then just kind of applying other concepts like accents and whatnot. Because you can play a lot of stuff without accents and it'll sound cool, but it's the accents that really give it dynamics, that make the difference between loud and soft. It just kind of sounds more exciting. Like I'll show you the difference between sort of playing with dynamics and playing without it.
Okay.
So this would be without dynamics, One volume or just all loud. Right? But if I start playing with the dynamics, just accenting certain notes just kind of makes it pop out a little bit more, right? Right? So that's sort of the idea with, combining just different ideas, right? You can play a certain type of note, but you can also bring in the factor of dynamics, and then you can even start playing with different time signatures, which is probably a little bit more technical than we should get into today. But
the one flavor I heard there, it sounded like YouTube's Bloody Bloody Sunday, that little bit of march at the start.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Like that's what a lot of march.
I'm not that old, Maz. I do pick up a vibe.
No, you're hip, man. You're probably one of the hippest guys I know. So, yeah, the marching stuff is cool. I actually, I've done some snare pieces myself. Like just over the years, I've studied some snare pieces, and it really helps sort of the core foundation.
That band YouTube's known. That drummer's known for that marching clip. Fast, slow pace there on the lead intro of those songs. That's what I was saying. That band's been around, mid-90s, let's say, for sure. I mean, as we know them, obviously they started earlier.
Yeah.
I bet you 2 or 3 or 4 of their songs, mid, start, intro, and at the end have that little bit of marching charge.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And like the marching is...
What else have you got for us?
Well, yeah, to sort of touch on the marching thing, this is a very, very common fill, a six-stroke roll, sort of in snare drumming, or I should call it a roll. It's really what it is, but essentially it's exactly what it sounds like. It's 6 individual hits, but usually what snare drummers would do is double stroke technique. So it's essentially getting 2 hits out of 1. So you start with that, and then you get the rebound using your fingers to bring it. So you end up getting 2 hits per stick. Right? So that's really where a lot of the rolls come from. So we start here and like, right? But the 6-stroke roll is basically this. And there's different ways to play it, but I usually run it this way. Right, left, right, left. And then it comes back around. And that I usually play it as triplets that way. Otherwise, it would be this. So that's 6 individual hits, but if you play it as triplets, it sort of gets a nice flow going to it. So you could start doing cool stuff with it. You could start moving it around the drum set, right? Just moving the single hits on the toms. It's a very, very common fill. And this is, again, what I'm saying about combining different ideas and concepts to make your own licks. I could just play something simple like that. Or I can start kind of adding rests and putting the rhythms in more interesting places, right? Right, so it just makes it sound a little bit cooler, and then, you can change where the accents actually are. Right, so that's sort of.
Do you have a certain way you warm up?
Yes, actually, and I did that this morning, to be exact. But it's actually the book that fell down earlier. I'll show it to you right here.
Don't think you can put one by the BMD. I'm sure.
I didn't think so. I didn't think I'd be able to, but thought I'd try my luck. So yeah, we got probably one of the many Bibles in the drumming world. This is a book called Stick Control. So this is my warm up right here.
Okay.
As of late, before I never really used to warm up, but especially when I'm going to be playing with people or doing something like this, I definitely find that this has really come a long way to work on the hand. So this is actually a snare drummer's book. That's what this is based off of.
So is that kind of like the Bible for drumming, or what?
It's one of them. There's many Bibles. There's like 4 or 5 Bibles, so it's hard to say these days which one is a Bible, but this is definitely one of them. So this is sort of just all patterns that sort of arise, like what I was just playing, the 6-stroke roll. When I just did it on the snare drum, that's basically what this stuff is, right? Like it's like I'll just play one right here. Just like very simple stuff, but the idea is you got to play each one for a minute without stopping. And you're supposed to practice 3 a day at minimum. Effectively sort of getting through this book in about 40 weeks or so. But the idea is by doing it every day, and they do get a little bit trickier and using varying speeds, it just helps you develop stick control. Because some of the patterns, it's combining double strokes, what I showed you before, with singles. And that's a really important thing because the more you're able to switch gears like that comfortably, the more you can experiment on the kit. And this goes with any instrument. You just get more freedom to be yourself. You have an idea in your head, you can do it. Your hands aren't a limitation.
You mentioned switching gears.
Yeah.
After you go with your feet going boom, boom on the bass and a few taps on the snares, how do you know when to bring the cymbals in?
Well, that's the thing. It's really all at your discretion, right? There's some ground rules for certain genres like rock, right? Like generally they'll crash at the end of a fill or at the end of every 4 bars, right? So that would be like... Right? In contemporary music, it just feels right to crash there, but it's not a rule really. I mean, you can really break the rules, and that's where bands like Rush and Tool really start doing that, right? And sort of experimenting and doing other things, right? You can bring the cymbals in really as what they are is a legato, just meaning stretched out longer sound, and the drums being sort of more staccato for the most part. And you could sort of just combine those two things, right? Even just playing the drums and the cymbals at the same time kind of yields different effects. You can hit them with a snare, or usually with a kick. Generally, that's usually the way to do it with the crash cymbals. But with these two guys, the ride and the hats, you can do some interesting stuff. And this is what I mean by smaller subdivisions. We have bigger ones, just basically usually 8ths and 16ths over here. And some beats just have those two elements, which is cool. But I can start playing 32nd notes and 16th notes over here, right? Using double strokes again. Right? So that's really where the cymbals would come in.
Is natural God-given talent make a drummer? Or is it hand-eye coordination? Or is it theory on knowing when to use the instrument, meaning cymbal, bass, drum, tom, snare?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
On that interpretation on where they just feel the music and let it down. Like Hendrix, I remember Hendrix guitaring, seeing an interview. This is going back before he died, of course, in the 70s. And he said, as he hits a note, I know we're talking about guitar strings, as he hits a note, a thought comes in his head. Like there's no preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was, he felt he had God-given talent, not on just ability, but how he perceived the music, how he heard it.
Yeah.
Drumming must be the same.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's, like to to be honest with you, is with somebody like, Jimi Hendrix, that's one in a million, right? There's not a lot of people that are born with the ability to that extent, right? A lot of it comes from sort of being born in a musical setting and just listening to music for a long time, and you sort of develop that ear to understand music. But what really gives you, in my eyes, the ability to be able to actually put it to work is the practice and the theory, right? That's the vessel to get there. Because if you have that, again, you have sort of total freedom to experiment, and you also have this universal language with every single musician. It's a lot easier to plan out a very complicated song with other musicians who are equally trained in theory as opposed to ones that aren't. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of guys that teach themselves and don't know a thing about theory, and they're incredible players. But again, those are very far and few between. You don't really see that as often. But I believe that really it's the hard work and practice that you can't get away from. Even if you are self-taught, those guys are spending hours a day behind their instrument and really learning it and trying to express their voice. So whether you come from a theory background or just a free-for-all, let's play to the records background, which is important too, still practice is really what creates it. That's why I think the word God-given talent sometimes isn't always fair, because a lot of those people, it may not seem like it on the surface, but there is just a ton of practice underneath all that, right? There is exceptions to the rule. There's child prodigies, obviously just sort of unexplainable freaks of nature. But for the most part, you're talking 10 years, 5 to 10 years of very, very dense practice and training with someone that is a better drummer than them or better guitarist than them, right? Usually mentors.
I feel like I've learned quite a bit. We're almost out of time, but cool. I want people to know how they can connect with you. First of all, if they need lessons or expand on a lick or a beat, or, because you do the beat master stuff too, how can people connect with you, sir?
Yeah, so you can check me out on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach me. It's at DoublePlaySounds, all one word. And the website is the same thing, www.doubleplaysounds.com. Also have a YouTube channel, which is just my full name, Michael Mazurek. And if you search Michael Mazurek drums, it should be the first thing that shows up for that. And all of that has email links to email me, and also a link to the website, which also has a form to email for any inquiries. But yeah, we do all of what the BMD mentioned, lessons, beat making, production, offering drum loops for people as well, drumming services. So, and a lot of that we can do remotely still, even with the pandemic, thankfully. So yeah, that's all the contact.
Well, great catching up with you. And we're going to do it again because I'm fascinated on how all this works in song development, whether it be guitar, drum, trumpets, piano, organ, or whatever. Folks, you've been listening to the BMD Talks on our YouTube channel, and we've had the Maz with us, Mike Mazurek, and he was showing us how to do Drumming 101, and we recorded it. Make sure, if you like the channel, if you like what you've heard, what you've seen, tell a friend. Mike, we'll catch up with you next time.
Yes, thank you for having me, BMD.
Have a great day.
You too, brother. Take care.